At 2:00 a.m. in Seoul's Anjou district, Kang-Dae, the Iron Dragon who built an empire on fear, does something no one has ever seen. He cries. Not a dignified tear. A body-shaking, soul-breaking collapse that makes his enforcers freeze in horror. The man who ordered executions over breakfast is now on his knees in a rain-soaked alley, destroyed by a homeless street singer with a duct-taped guitar. What did she do to him? 12 seconds earlier, Kang-Dae had been laughing. The kind of cruel, cutting laughter that makes people disappear. He tossed a $50,000 gold Patek Philippe watch into her guitar case like pocket change. "Buy a real life, little bird," he sneered, turning away. "And stop polluting my city." But then Sora began to sing. The melody stopped the rain, or at least it felt that way. The enforcers, halfway to their black SUVs, froze mid-step. The neon signs seemed to dim, because this wasn't some street busker song. This was his mother's lullaby. The private melody she hummed in their kitchen on Jeju Island 20 years ago. A song never recorded, never written down, never shared with anyone. A song that was supposed to have burned to ashes in the same fire that killed her. As Sora's voice filled the alley, words about a blue moon and a hidden garden, the Iron Dragon shattered. His broad shoulders began to shake. His fists, which had broken men, now trembled like a child's. He turned back slowly, his voice barely a whisper. Where did you hear that song? Keep watching to find out how a woman's lullaby connects a mafia boss to a street singer, and why their story will haunt you long after you finish. Before that single tear carved its path through the rain, before the Iron Dragon was brought to his knees, Kang-Dae was a man who had forgotten the meaning of mercy. He had just stepped out of the Black Lotus, the most exclusive club in the Anjou district. His knuckles were still stained with the drying blood of the Johan Syndicate's last loyalists. He had just finalized a takeover that made him the undisputed king of Seoul's underbelly. He was at the absolute peak of his power, and his heart was as cold as the steel of the blade tucked into his waistband. The alley was his. Every brick, every shadow, and every shivering soul within it belonged to him. So when he saw the girl, this ragged, trembling girl with a guitar that looked like it had been pulled from a dumpster, he didn't see a human being. He saw a nuisance. He saw a stain on his victory lap. "You're in the wrong place, little bird," Kang-Dae said, his voice dripping with a casual, terrifying malice. His enforcers shifted behind him, a wall of dark fabric and silent threat. They knew this tone. It was the sound of a cat playing with a mouse it had already decided to kill. Sora didn't move. She couldn't. The sheer weight of his presence seemed to pin her against the damp brick wall. Her eyes were fixed on his, eyes that had seen the worst of humanity and hadn't blinked. I just need a place to play," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the hum of the city. "The tourists, they come through here." Kang-Dae laughed, a harsh, jagged sound. "Tourists don't come here after midnight. Only monsters do." He stepped into her personal space, the scent of expensive cologne and copper filling her lungs. He looked down at her hands, slender, calloused fingers gripping the neck of the guitar. "You're occupying $3 million worth of real estate for free," he sneered. "My men don't like squatters, and I don't like noise that doesn't make me money." He leaned in closer, his shadow swallowing her whole. "Here's the deal. You're going to give me a performance. You're going to sing something that actually touches a heart as black as mine. If you succeed, maybe you keep the gold watch I just threw in your lap. If you fail..." He reached out, his gloved hand catching her chin, forcing her to look up. "If you fail, my men will make sure you never hold that guitar again. A musician without fingers is just another beggar with a sad story." The enforcers chuckled. One of them produced a pair of heavy-duty wire cutters, the metal glinting under the neon signs. Sora's breath hitched. She saw the Iron Dragon in his truest form, a monster who destroyed beautiful things just to see them break. With trembling hands, she adjusted the strap of her guitar. She looked at the blood on his knuckles, then at the coldness in his eyes. She didn't reach for a pop song. She didn't reach for a plea for mercy. She reached for the only thing she had left, a ghost. As Kang-Dae's hand moved toward the hilt of his knife, ready to end the game, Sora struck the first chord. It was a low, resonant minor key that vibrated in the very marrow of his bones. Kang-Dae's hand didn't just stop. It froze in midair, his fingers locking as the first note of his mother's forgotten song tore through the silence of the alley. The melody unfurls like a funeral shroud. Sora's voice, once a trembling whisper, now carries a haunting clarity that cuts through the thrum of the city. She sings of a garden hidden behind a weathered red gate, of white lilies that only bloom in the shadow of a jagged mountain peak, geographic details of a village on the coast of Jeju that was wiped off the map 20 years ago. These aren't just lyrics. They are a lyrical blueprint of a life Kang-Dae had buried under a mountain of bodies and gold. He stands paralyzed. Each word is a needle to his heart. She sings of the stone well with the chipped rim and the scent of sun-dried sea salt on a mother's apron. This was his secret, the hidden life of a boy named Jae-hoon before he became the Iron Dragon. No one alive should know these words. No record of this song exists in any archive, any database, or any digital footprint. It was a ghost's whisper, passed from one heart to another in a kitchen that no longer exists. "Boss, this is a setup," snarls Sang-hyuk, his lead enforcer. The giant man steps forward, his heavy hand reaching for the neck of Sora's guitar. "She's a plant. Some rival family is trying to mess with your head. I'll shut her up for good." He doesn't get a chance. Faster than the eye can follow, Kang-Dae's hand, the one that had been reaching for a blade moments ago, dives into his holster. The sharp, metallic click of a chambered round echoes louder than the rain. The barrel of his blackened Beretta is pressed firmly, bruisingly, against Sang-hyuk's temple. "If her voice falters," Kang-Dae whispers, his eyes never leaving Sora, "if she even skips a single beat because of you, you die before the note ends. Stay back." Sang-hyuk freezes, his face turning a sickly ash gray as he realizes the monster he serves has been replaced by something far more unpredictable, a man possessed. The rest of the enforcers step back, their own weapons lowered in shock. They are witnessing the impossible, the Iron Dragon turning on his own inner circle for a street rat in a tattered coat. Sora continues, her eyes locked on Kang-Dae's. There is no fear in her gaze anymore, only a profound, ancient sadness. She reaches the end of the verse, her fingers trailing slowly off the strings, letting the last vibration of the wood die out in the cold, damp air. The silence that follows is suffocating, broken only by the sound of rain hitting the pavement. Kang-Dae slowly lowers his gun, but his gaze remains fixed. Before she can even draw breath to speak, he leans in, his lips inches from her ear. In a voice that sounds like grinding stones and broken glass, he whispers the final line, the one she had purposefully left out. "The dragon sleeps where the lilies weep, waiting for the sea to bring him home." He suddenly grabs her wrist, his grip like a vice, pulling her toward him. "Who sent you?" he growls, "and how do you know the lullaby of a dead woman?" His grip does not loosen as he drags her toward the idling black sedan, the metal of his rings cold against her skin. "Get in," he commands, a directive that carries the weight of an executioner's axe. The enforcers, still shaken by the sight of their boss's weapon leveled at one of their own, scramble to open the doors. Sora is shoved into the plush, leather interior, a world of cedar and quiet that smells nothing like the rain-soaked gutters she calls home. The drive to the Gangnam district is a blur of neon streaks and suffocating silence. They ascend 60 floors in a private elevator that opens directly into a penthouse that is less a home and more a fortress of glass and steel. The city lights of Seoul spread out below like a carpet of fallen stars, but to Sora, the floor-to-ceiling windows feel like the walls of a transparent coffin. The relic in the rags. Kang-Dae stands by the window, his back turned, his silhouette cutting a jagged hole in the city's glow. "The song," he says, his voice dangerously low. "Every word, every inflection, it was hers. Tell me who you work for. Or I will let Sang-hyuk finish what he started in the alley." Sora collapses onto a velvet sofa, her battered guitar case clutched to her chest like a shield. Tears of terror finally break, carving tracks through the grime on her face. "I don't work for anyone," she cries, her voice cracking. "I found it. I found the music in a flea market in Incheon. It was just an old, salt-stained diary buried in a box of discarded junk. I bought it for 3,000 won because the melodies were beautiful." She fumbles with the rusted latches of her case. Instead of a weapon, she pulls out a small, leather-bound notebook. The cover is warped by sea salt and age, the leather cracked like sun-dried earth. A handwriting from the grave. Kang-Dae snatches the book from her hands. His breath hitches. He doesn't need to read the words to know the truth. He recognizes the elegant, slanted script, the way the letter J always looped a little too far to the left. It is his mother's handwriting. He flips through the pages, his eyes darting over recipes for seaweed soup, sketches of the Jeju coastline, and the lyrics to the lullaby he just heard in the rain. But as he reaches the middle, the entries change. The dates continue past the night of the fire. "This is impossible," he whispers, his hands trembling. "I saw the house burn, I saw the embers. She died 20 years ago." "The last entry is dated only 3 years ago," Sora whispers, her voice trembling. "I didn't know who she was. I just thought she was a poet who loved the sea." The shattering. The realization hits Kang-Dae like a physical blow. If the diary is real, his mother didn't die in the fire, she was taken. And if she was taken, the life he built on the foundation of her memory is a lie. He turns to Sora, his eyes burning with a new, frantic fire. "You're going to show me exactly where." The sentence is cut short by a high-pitched crack that rings louder than the city's hum. The reinforced, triple-paned glass of the penthouse doesn't just break, it disintegrates into a million diamond-like shards. Sora screams as she is thrown back. A high-velocity sniper round streaks through the air, punching a hole through the wood of her guitar, missing her heart by mere inches. Kang-Dae tackles her to the floor, his body a shield against the incoming rain of glass. The red dot of a laser sight dances across the wall behind them. "They're not here for the diary," Kang-Dae snarls, drawing his weapon as the lights of the penthouse automatically kill to prevent further targeting. "The war has found us, little bird, and it seems someone is very afraid of what you might sing next." The darkness is absolute, but Kang-Dae moves through it like a predator that owns the night. He hauls Sora behind a heavy mahogany desk just as a second round whistles through the air, embedding itself into a priceless porcelain vase. "Stay down," he snarls, his voice stripped of all emotion, replaced by a cold, tactical clarity. Outside, the muffled thwip-thwip of silenced submachine guns signals that the sniper was just the distraction. The breach team has arrived. Kang-Dae kicks the desk over, creating a makeshift barricade. He doesn't just return fire, he hunts. He slides across the marble floor, drawing a second weapon from a hidden magnetic mount under the table. As 3 shadows in tactical gear burst through the elevator doors, Kang-Dae becomes the Iron Dragon. He fires with surgical precision. 3 shots, 3 kills. The muzzle flashes illuminating the room like strobe lights in a charnel house. While the silence returns briefly, Kang-Dae's eyes fall back on the salt-stained diary lying near Sora. In the flickering light of a burning curtain, he sees that the musical notes aren't just art. They are a cipher. Between the bars of music, written in microscopic ink, are names, high-ranking assemblymen, police chiefs, judges. The very men who helped him build his empire were the ones his mother was hunting before the fire. The Song of the Dead isn't a lullaby, it's a death warrant. It's a ledger of every corrupt official in South Korea. A 4th assassin lunges from the shadows, a serrated blade aiming for Kang-Dae's throat. Kang-Dae catches the man's wrist, the sound of bones snapping echoing in the hollow room. He doesn't hesitate. He drives his own knife upward, ending the threat instantly. As the man slumps to the floor, Kang-Dae's gaze catches a flash of ink on the assassin's neck. It's a stylized mark, a serpent eating its own tail, the Ouroboros. His blood runs cold. He looks at Sora, who is trembling in the corner, clutching the shattered remains of her guitar. He reaches out, grabbing her arm and wrenching her sleeve back. There, on her pale wrist, is the exact same mark, identical in every detail to the one on the dead man's throat. Kang-Dae looms over her, the blood-stained ledger in one hand and his gun in the other. The Iron Dragon is gone, replaced by a man who realizes he has invited a viper into his sanctuary. "The names in here, they're the people I pay, the people who made me," he growls, his voice vibrating with a terrifying rage. He points the ledger at her as the sirens begin to wail in the distance. "And that mark on your wrist, it belongs to the men who just tried to kill us. So tell me, little bird, before I decide which side of this gun you're on. Who are you really, Sora, and whose blood is on your hands? Sora flinches, not from the gun, but from the raw betrayal in Kang-Dae's voice. She pulls her arm back, her fingers tracing the ink of the serpent. This isn't a badge of honor, she whispers, her voice hollow and trembling. It's a brand. It's the mark Chairman Min puts on everything he thinks he owns. I'm not his assassin, Kang-Dae. I'm his collateral. The name Chairman Min hits Kang-Dae like a physical strike. Min was the man who had plucked Kang-Dae from the gutters after the fire, the mentor who had funded his rise and handed him the keys to the Anjou district. You're lying, Kang-Dae growls, though the conviction is leaking from his voice. I was raised in a basement in Jeju, Sora says, tears finally spilling over. By a woman who spent every night humming that song to keep the shadows away. She called me her little bird because she knew I'd have to fly away one day to find you. She gave me this diary. She told me the music was the only thing you recognized because it was the only thing the fire couldn't touch. Kang-Dae feels the world tilt. The image of the burning house, the screams he thought he'd imagined, it all reshapes itself into a new, more sinister reality. She's alive, he asks, the iron dragon cracking completely. My mother is alive. She is a ghost, Sora replies. Chairman Min keeps her in a gilded cage at the Blue Estate. He used her to ensure you never turned against him. Every time you succeeded, she was fed. Every time you hesitated, she was punished. You didn't build an empire, Kang-Dae. You built a prison, and she's the one sitting in the cell. The realization is a poison in his veins. Every victory he celebrated, every rival he crushed for the chairman, was a payment for a life he didn't even know was being held over his head. His entire identity, the ruthless boss, the king of the underground, was a performance directed by the man who had stolen his family. He looks at the ledger again. The names aren't just corrupt officials, they are Min's inner circle. His mother hadn't just been tracking them, she had been documenting the men who would eventually become Kang-Dae's handlers. Suddenly, the silence of the darkened penthouse is shattered by the shrill, electronic chirp of Kang-Dae's private phone. It's an encrypted line, known only to 3 people. He answers, his knuckles white as he grips the device. I heard the girl sang tonight, Kang-Dae. Chairman Min's voice comes through, smooth and cold as polished marble. There is a faint sound of a piano playing in the background, the same melody Sora had played in the alley. It's a beautiful arrangement, but tell me, after 20 years of silence, do you want to hear the second verse, or should I go ahead and kill the composer? The dial tone from Chairman Min's call echoes in the hollow silence of the penthouse, sounding like the steady drip of a leaking IV. Kang-Dae lowers the phone, his face a mask of frozen rage. He looks at Sora, who is still huddled on the floor amidst the diamond shards of the window. The alley, he says, his voice a jagged rasp. You didn't just happen to be there. You weren't busking for change. Sora wipes the grime and tears from her face, standing up with a shaky grace. I spent 2 years tracking your movements, Kang-Dae. I knew you owned that district. I knew you'd be coming from the Black Lotus after the takeover. I had to make you notice me. I had to make you angry enough to take me, but curious enough to listen. I knew if I just knocked on your door. His men would kill me before I reached the elevator. I needed the Iron Dragon to find his heart before the chairman cut it out. The mocking in the alley hadn't been a game to her. It was a desperate gamble on the ghost of a brother she had never met. She knew he was the only force in Seoul fast enough and brutal enough to move against Min before the chairman realized the little bird had finally found the dragon. But the dragon's own nest is infested. 2 hours later, the air in the private dining room of the Crimson Crane is thick with the smell of scorched wagyu and treason. Kang-Dae sits at the head of the table, the salt-stained diary resting beside his wine glass. His top 5 lieutenants sit in a row, their faces tight. Sang-hyuk, the man who had the gun to his head earlier, is the first to break. Boss, the streets are already whispering, Sang-hyuk says, his voice strained. Min has cut off our supply lines. The police are raiding our warehouses in Incheon, all for a street singer. Give Min the girl. End this before we all burn with you. 2 other lieutenants nod in silent agreement, their hands hovering too close to their jackets. The room is a powder keg. They aren't just divided, they've already been bought. Kang-Dae doesn't argue. He doesn't explain. He simply picks up the carving knife from the center of the table. "You think you're choosing peace," he says, his voice devoid of heat. "But you're just choosing which monster gets to eat you." In a blur of motion that justifies his legend, Kang-Dae lunges. The red wedding of the Anjou district begins and ends in 90 seconds of calculated, horrific efficiency. 3 lieutenants, the ones who had already been promised his territory by Min, fall before they can even draw. The room is silent again, save for the wet thud of bodies hitting the carpet. Kang-Dae stands in the center of the carnage, his charcoal suit ruined, his face and hands drenched in the dark blood of his own men. He looks toward the corner where Sora stands, clutching her broken guitar, her eyes wide with the horror of what she has unleashed. "The air in here is foul with lies," Kang-Dae says, his chest heaving as he wipes his blade on a silk napkin. He points to the guitar. "Play it, Sora. Play the second verse. Cleanse this room of their filth so we can finally start the war." The blood in the crimson crane had barely dried before Kang-Dae began the transformation. He didn't just need a sister, he needed a Trojan horse. To the world, the Iron Dragon was making a desperate peace offering to Chairman Min to save his crumbling territory. He spent the next 48 hours grooming Sora, replacing her tattered rags with a hanbok of midnight silk that shimmered like oil on water. But the most important repair was the guitar. Kang-Dae himself worked on the instrument, his scarred fingers surprisingly delicate as he hollowed out a secret compartment behind the bridge. He didn't fill it with drugs or gold. He slid in a compact, military-grade detonator, its red light blinking like a heartbeat against the wood. "You are the tribute, Sora," Kang-Dae whispered as they sat in the back of a darkened van outside the Blue Estate. The estate was a sprawling fortress where Chairman Min was hosting his daughter's wedding, the social event of the year for Seoul's elite and its most dangerous criminals. Min loves a spectacle. He loves to show that he has tamed what was once wild. You will go in there, you will play, and when the final note of the second verse hits, you walk toward the service exit. You do not look back. The tension at the gates of the Blue Estate was a physical weight. Security wasn't just thugs in suits. It was private military with scanners that could see through bone. Sora felt her heart hammering against her ribs as a guard ran a wand over the guitar. The metal detector chirped over the hidden detonator, but Kang-Dae's preparation held. He had shielded it with lead foil disguised as a decorative inlay. They were ushered into the grand ballroom, a cathedral of gold leaf and crystal. Chairman Min sat on a raised dais, his presence a dark sun around which the room orbited. His daughter, dressed in white, looked like a doll trapped in a cage. When Min saw Sora, his eyes narrowed, a predatory glint appearing in his gaze. "The little bird from the alley," Min announced, his voice carrying over the chamber music. The room fell silent. "I heard you have a talent for sentimental melodies, but today is a celebration. We don't want ghosts at a wedding. Play something light, a pop song, something the girl can dance to." The lead security officer stepped forward, his hand resting on his holster, nodding toward Sora. "You heard the chairman. Change the set list. Now." Sora looked across the room. In the shadows of the pillars, she saw a waiter with a familiar, lethal posture. Kang-Dae. He didn't nod. He didn't blink. He simply touched his ear. Sora turned back to the chairman. Her fear was gone, replaced by the cold, hard clarity of the mother's song. She didn't adjust her grip for a pop tune. She struck the first, haunting minor chord of the lullaby, the sound of a widow's grief and a son's rage. The music didn't just fill the hall, it stopped the breath of every man in the room. Chairman Min's face didn't just drop, it turned a ghostly, translucent white. He stood up so abruptly his wine glass tipped, the deep red liquid spreading across the white tablecloth like a fresh wound. "I told you," Min hissed, his voice trembling for the first time in 30 years. "Stop that song." Sora does not stop. As Chairman Min's face drains of color, her voice swells, the haunting melody transforming into a rhythmic, percussive chant. The lyrics are no longer about gardens or lilies. They are a tactical countdown disguised as poetry. "When the sun sets in the north, the shadows move," she sings, and across the ballroom, 3 waiters drop their silver trays in unison. When the golden bird falls, the gates shall open. Min realizes too late that the song is an instruction set for a hidden strike team. To regain control of the room, he gestures to the security team, a cruel smile twisting his mouth. "You want to sing her song," Min shouts over the music. "Then sing it for her." At a snap of his fingers, the velvet curtains at the back of the stage part, and a heavy iron-barred cage is wheeled out by 2 armored guards, presented as a grotesque prop for the performance. Inside, huddled on a floor of cold straw, is a woman whose face is a map of 20 years of sorrow. She is frail, her hair a shock of white, but her eyes, those sharp, amber eyes, are unmistakably the source of the fire that burns in Kang-Dae. "Behold," Min mocks, "the composer herself. A bit out of tune, perhaps, but she still serves her purpose." The plan, the careful, silent extraction Kang-Dae had rehearsed, disintegrates in a heartbeat. The Iron Dragon was never built for patience when his blood was involved. From the shadows of the banquet tables, Kang-Dae erupts, ignoring the plan to charge the stage early. He doesn't wait for the final verse or the detonator. He draws his twin Berettas, the muzzle flashes illuminating the gold leaf ceiling as he carves a path through Min's elite guards. He is a whirlwind of silver and lead, moving with a suicidal ferocity that even the chairman's private military cannot contain. He leaps onto the stage, the mahogany splintering under his boots, and guns down the guards holding the cage keys. He reaches the bars, his hands slick with the blood of the men he just slaughtered. His breath is ragged, his eyes searching the woman's face for a glimmer of the mother who used to hum him to sleep. "Iyama," he whispers, his voice breaking, "it's me. I've come to take you home." But the woman doesn't reach for him. She flinches, crawling to the farthest corner of the cage, her eyes wide with a visceral, soul-deep terror. She looks at the blood on his hands, at the cold, lethal dragon tattooed on his neck, and then back at his face. "Stay away," she screams, her voice a jagged shard of glass. "I know who you are. You're the one who sent them. You're the monster who killed my son." The scream from the cage pierces Kang-Dae deeper than any bullet. He stands frozen, the Iron Dragon paralyzed by the sheer terror in his mother's eyes. He is a monster to her, a blood-soaked ghost of the son she lost. Behind him, the ballroom is a vortex of violence. Chairman Min's secondary security tier has arrived, flooding the floor with smoke and high-caliber fire. "Sora, move!" Kang-Dae bellows, finally snapping back to reality as a grenade shatters the stage's left wing. Sora is struggling with the service exit door, the heavy guitar still strapped to her back, but a wall of armored guards cuts her off. She looks back at Kang-Dae, her eyes wide with a silent command, "Save her." Kang-Dae is forced into the cruelest mathematics of survival. He lunges for the cage, wrenching the lock with a strength born of desperation, and pulls his trembling mother into his arms. He throws her over his shoulder just as a secondary explosion rocks the hall, bringing down a massive crystal chandelier that creates a wall of jagged glass and fire between him and his sister. "Kang-Dae!" Sora's voice is a fatting cry before she is swallowed by the smoke and the black-clad shadows of Min's men. 30 minutes later, the rain is still falling, but the air is cold and quiet inside a derelict warehouse on the edge of the Han River. Kang-Dae's mother sits on a crate, her breath coming in shallow hitches. The recognition hasn't fully set in, but the fear has dulled into a weary, soul-crushing exhaustion. She looks at Kang-Dae's face in the dim light, tracing the line of his jaw. "You have his chin," she whispers, her voice a ghost of the woman she once was. "But your eyes, they are hers." "Whose?" Kang-Dae asks, his hands shaking as he tries to bandage a shrapnel wound in his side. "Sora's," she says, her gaze turning toward the dark water. "I was 3 months pregnant when the fire started, Jae-hoon. Min didn't just take me, he took the life inside me. He raised her in that basement to be his instrument, his final insurance policy against you. She isn't just a singer I found in the dark. She is your blood. She is the sister you were never supposed to know." The room spins. The hidden child trope that had driven his curiosity wasn't about a lost daughter or a secret lover. It was the inversion of his entire history. Sora was the living proof that his mother's love had survived the fire, and Min had spent 20 years weaponizing that love. His phone vibrates on the cold concrete. It's a video message from an unknown number. He presses play. The screen shows the rooftop of the Blue estate. Sora is standing on the very edge of the ledge, her midnight silk hanbok whipping in the wind like a funeral shroud. Her hands are bound, and Chairman Min stands behind her, holding her battered guitar like a trophy. "You saved the composer, Kang-Dae," Min's voice purrs from the speakers. "But you forgot that every great epic needs a tragic ending. One more song, Iron Dragon, the song of your family's end. You have 10 minutes to get back here, or I'll see if your sister can fly as well as she sings." The rain has turned into a freezing mist as Kang-Dae reaches the jagged cliffs of the Yeongdo lighthouse. He isn't wearing his charcoal suit anymore. He is a man stripped of his armor, holding only a silver briefcase containing the encrypted keys to every offshore account and warehouse in his name. Chairman Min stands at the edge, the wind whipping his hair, holding Sora by the neck over the churning Black Sea. "The keys for the girl," Kang-Dae says, his voice steady despite the blood loss from his side. He slides the briefcase across the wet stone. "The Iron Dragon is dead. Take the Empire, just give me my sister." Min kicks the briefcase aside without looking at it. "I didn't spend 20 years raising a dragon just to let him retire," he sneers, pulling a compact pistol from his coat. "The Empire was always mine. Now I'm just cleaning up the trash." But before he can pull the trigger, a shadow emerges from the swirling mist behind Kang-Dae. It is his mother, no longer the trembling victim from the cage. She stands tall, clutching the salt-stained diary, the bloodline ledger, like a holy relic. "The songs weren't just for Jaehoon Min," she calls out, her voice carrying over the roar of the waves. "They were the frequency for your own destruction." She reveals that the ledger contains more than names. It holds the digital keys to the death warrants, the evidence that would trigger a simultaneous leak to every international agency. If she drops the book into the sea, the server triggers. Everyone in Min's circle is finished. The distraction is all Kang-Dae needs. He lunges, not for Min, but for Sora, pulling her back from the ledge as the strike team he signaled with the final verse of the song finally closes in. In the chaos that follows, the power of the chairman vanishes as quickly as the mist. Months later, the neon lights of Seoul are a distant memory. On a quiet, sun-drenched beach in Jeju, the only sound is the gentle, rhythmic lapping of the tide. Sora sits on a piece of driftwood, her new guitar, the one Kang-Dae bought her, humming a peaceful melody. Kang-Dae sits nearby, his tattoos partially hidden by a simple linen shirt. There is no mockery in his eyes, only the quiet peace of a man who found what was lost. As the sun begins to set, a shadow falls over Sora's guitar case. A tall figure in a tailored white suit stands there. He doesn't say a word, but he reaches out and drops a single heavy gold coin into her case. As he walks away, the camera lingers on the coin. It isn't a serpent. It's a symbol of a phoenix rising from a bed of lilies, a mark they've never seen before. The war might be over, but a new song is just beginning.